When you received your ADHD diagnosis as an adult, did you start to think, if I'm not the lazy one and I'm not the over emotional one, then who have I been this whole time?
If so, you're not alone because no one tells you that an ADHD diagnosis doesn't just explain your life, it rearranges it.
It's an experience where one question gets answered, but another 50 come up that we were never prepared for.
Today, we're talking about the identity crisis so many women experience after an ADHD diagnosis.
This is Angry on the Inside. I'm Jess.
And I'm Jeannine. We're both certified ADHD coaches, but this podcast isn't coaching.
It's not therapy or medical advice.
It's just real, honest conversations about being women with late diagnosed ADHD and everything that goes along with it.
Take what resonates and leave the rest. After diagnosis, we all expect to experience this relieving moment. Finally, I have answers and I'm moving on.
There's relief, like real relief, because you realize, I'm not just bad at life.
It does reframe things. This is the part that sort of catches people off guard. We've talked about the grief, the sadness, and some of the anger that comes along with it. But there's sort of middle quiet space where we figure out who we've been this whole time. You know, you've lost the version of yourself that you were absolutely certain about, but you've also spent all of this time knowing deep down inside that something was going on. You had nothing to back it up.
All those identities that you had taken on, carrying for years, I'm lazy, I can't follow through. They start to fall apart.
It's very destabilizing. People don't really warn you about what's going to happen because typically you're in a space before you receive that late diagnosis where you don't know anyone else who has ADHD. You don't understand what's getting ready to happen. That's why it's so disarming. We're on a spectrum. Everybody is different and everybody's experience is different, but we also know that we all have base similarities. There's no book out there that directly says this is exactly what's going to happen after you receive your diagnosis. Jeannine and I, we both read and watch as much as we can. I will tell you, there's nothing that straightforward that I have come across. And if you have, share it with us, please.
Please.
What you think is your personality might actually be a pattern that your brain developed to cope.
It doesn't mean it's fake. It didn't come from nowhere. You picked it up somewhere. Am I actually low maintenance? Or did I just learn not to ask for anything because I didn't want to be too much?
We've had a tirade about being low maintenance, but this is a totally different conversation. Low maintenance, it meant that I was abandoning myself. It meant that I wasn't asking for what I wanted. It meant that I was thinking I was too much and I was changing my behavior to assess that. But did I use that as part of my identity? Was I holding on to that as part of my identity? Is that what makes me me? That's the hard part. Were you actually happy with being low maintenance? Is that the real question when we're talking about identity? What are the pieces that we're happy with? What are the pieces that are comfortable and make us feel like we aren't faking it? We're feeling more comfortable in our skin when we're starting to be more open about ourselves. I think that's very hard to figure out.
Your identity has been split in half. There's before the diagnosis you and the after diagnosis you.
You don't really recognize either version of yourself anymore. This is where we see those shadows of masking. A lot of us being late diagnosed don't realize how much of our life has been spent just trying to get through the day. That comes with heavy masking and having a certain level of performance.
You're constantly scanning. Am I talking too much? Did I forget something? Am I coming across as irresponsible? It's just that constant dialogue going on. I remember sitting in meetings, rehearsing what I was going to say in my head, then not saying it at all because I couldn't tell if it was just the right moment. Thinking that was just being professional by speaking up, and actually I was masking.
That's so exhausting. It really is. It's so deeply exhausting in a way that you stop questioning after it's been going on for so long. You think that's just what life feels like. It's unfortunate that that's how our brains sort of default. This is what life feels like. No, it shouldn't be what life feels like. But we give it names that we think are appropriate. Like, I'm being professional. I'm being polite. I'm being considerate. Really, you're just drowning yourself.
But if you're finding out late in life that you have ADHD, how did you know life was supposed to be different? We looked around sometimes and would think, that person doesn't seem to be struggling like me, or shows up for us as depression, anxiety. But it feels like that's just the way our life is. Then you get the diagnosis and it's like, well, wait, where do I begin?
If we start masking so early and so young, is that person even there? that person that I was supposed to be, are they still there? Did I change it so early in life that this is actually who I am? It can become kind of existential when you're really digging into it. Girls start masking as early as 3 to 6 years old. If you're already adjusting yourself to please others, and then you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 80s, receiving a diagnosis, how do you find the person that you actually are? Or is it a complete rebuild?
The mask drops and you don't immediately know like what's underneath it. It's not this empowering be yourself moment. That was honestly one of the most unsettling things for me because I realized I didn't fully know exactly who was I.
After my diagnosis, there's nothing more than I would have loved than to like kick the door in and go and kick the day in the nuts and feel like I was this all powerful, all knowing person because I finally had the answer to one of these huge questions that had been looming over me my whole life. That's not what happens. There's just so many layered emotions and different steps. We start to get frustrated, we get overwhelmed. We start to learn all of this new vocabulary and we start to recognize these patterns that we had. A lot of us have to go into therapy
Hmm.
or group or find some type of support system because it's upsetting to get all of this information and all of this clarity all at once. The light is blinding. There are too many years of thinking about why I just can't get my shit together and looking at others and thinking that they had their shit together. We can almost be emotionally abusive to ourselves as we reach certain ages and into adulthood because we've taken on so much negativity from others. What else is there to do but to blame ourselves?
So why is everything so much harder for me? I think really it hits as you get older because somehow you can still kind of be a little bit of a mess, quote unquote, like when you're in high school. But by the time you get out into the real world and you've got a job, especially when you start a family, become a mom. Oh shit, you're supposed to have your life together. How can you not have your life together? You're supposed to because you got these little creatures that are dependent on you. And all the other moms seem to have their freaking lives together. So what's your problem?
It's validating to know there is a reason behind it. But we're riding those waves of grief and we're trying to find who we are. There's been times when you and I have discussed it, moments where I am like, God, I wish I was like this. When I was like this in my life, I was most like myself.
Hmm.
Um, for me, it was my mid-teens and then my late 20s. My late 20s was when I felt like I was most like myself. I had my kids, but I was single and I was making my way along and I was brash and snarky. And it was really a point in my life where I gave no fucks what anybody else was thinking about me. I just didn't care. I was perfectly happy being a mother and having my job. That's like a time where I felt most like myself and most freeing. I didn't have to feel like I had to have this amazing job because I was just trying to get by at the time. And that was totally okay.
Yeah.
That is when I felt most myself. And I think a lot of women who receive late diagnosis can seek out a time in their lives if they stop and look where they're like, that's the version of me. Maybe that's it. That's the version of me that I love the most.
I had forgotten we've had this conversation just between the two of us, and it just dawned on me that, okay, we were slightly at different ages because I would say it was actually like my mid to late 30s.
Hmm.
Um, but I was divorced. It was just me and my kids. They were young and I had my house, I had my job, and I had so much more self esteem and so much more belief in myself. Being single, that might be there's something there.
Or maybe a case of feeling empowered. That would have been a time I think both of us would have felt very empowered. It's very much a case where you are truly in control of your life. Maybe for the first time, like ever, it's the first time you truly felt like you got to be in your own because you did.
You're right. It's the not worrying about how you're being perceived or being judged.
Hmm.
Actually, I think when your kids are young and they're still at that age where they think you're cool, just how you live your life and how you are, they realize that go to other people's houses and things are different. But it's just feeling like there isn't a judgment. So what? I go into mom's room and her bathroom counter is covered. There's no square inch because everything she owns is set up on that counter. I don't go in when they're 6 and go, damn, mom's disorganized. What's her problem? Why can't she get her act together? All of that. You didn't quite stick to the schedule that you had planned for the day, or you didn't get something done that you said you would. They're fine with the I'll do it tomorrow. You're in your home with your kid. You are yourself because no one's watching. There's no one to impress. And I totally forgot that was actually we were different ages, but we were in the exact same place, and that's when we felt the best about ourselves. There.
Life is crazy. So it doesn't always get said out loud, but you worry. If I change, if I'm different, will these people still love me? Will they still like me? Will they want me in their lives?
They have been loving a version of you, a version that you had created. But what happens if I stop the people pleasing? I start to set boundaries and I just stop being on all the time.
I'm going to be really blunt, and most people won't be about this, but the answer is yes, you are correct. There are lots of people who are not going to hang around after your ADHD diagnosis. And I know that sucks to hear, but I do know that those people who love you, who want to have positive influence in your life, they will still be there when that mask drops, when you stop setting yourself on fire to please other people. They'll still be there and they'll be interested in asking why. And they'll be interested in trying to make sure that they also adjust their behavior towards you and respect your boundaries because of you becoming a different person. But there will also be people who come into your life now that you would have never imagined. People who understand exactly where you're standing, people who will help you understand what your actual identity is and where you're comfortable being in life.
You become more comfortable with people not being comfortable with you. You become more secure in yourself. And so those people that maybe aren't willing to completely accept or want to understand fully, somehow I can kind of deal with them because I know I'm not working so hard on trying to please them or, be who they want me to be. It's easier. I'm the one who puts the space between us. I'm not that person anymore, and I'm not going to be that person.
I do love that line. I'm not her anymore. It's okay to not be her anymore, gang. It really is. Because people assume that once you have the diagnosis, that self-acceptance just sort of clicks into place. And it doesn't.
I wish it was. It was like the next day you wake up and you're like, oh, great. Now I love myself.
I truly wish that that was my experience, but it was not. I also wish that it was a case that I was able to stop believing the worst about myself automatically. That was also not the case.
Yeah. It's weird because it's still there, right? You're right. It doesn't go away. You have some new perspective, a new lens. So it's like the volume's turned down, but it is definitely still there.
And, it takes actively rebuilding yourself into almost something new. It's okay to take it in steps and in small bites and in little pieces. It doesn't have to all happen at once, but it honestly is a journey.
It's scary and it's weird because you're having to build that self worth without ever having really known in any stable way before. So you're building something in a lot of ways you've never had or never experienced. One of the biggest shifts for me was letting go of that idea that, you're supposed to be everything, that I was supposed to be perfect. Because pretending to be perfect was definitely my mask. I was going to do everything perfect.
You're not trying to return to something. That's just going to lead you down the wrong path. But you are going to have to learn how to create it for the first time.
What you had created, you created for others. It was based on how they saw you, how you think they should, or how you wanted them to see you. It wasn't on what you wanted. Isn't that what masking's trying to achieve? Is how do I need to be for these people?
The masking will work for a time. It might work for a really long time, but the end result is always burnout. It may come through in different ways for different people, but the end result is always the same.
Now it becomes, so what actually works for me?
And that's one of those questions that seems really simple and it's not. A lot of disappointment for myself and others throughout the years and feeling like I wasn't getting it right. Those are there, but I don't have the outline and I have to go and seek out the tools to start figuring this out. Some of that might mean disappointing other people in your life. But one of the biggest misconceptions is that diagnosis is the end of the story. We all think that that's the happy ending, that that's where it stops. But my friends, this is a choose your own adventure. A huge turning point for me was when I started thinking what actually does matter to me, trying to understand what my values were, trying to understand what I was actually tolerating in my life, and really start paying attention to the cost of those things.
Well, yeah, who am I without all that pressure? Being outgoing. Does it open doors? Well, yeah, but does it also drain me? Am I not a really outgoing person? I just kind of learned to be. And is it draining? Yeah, it is.
Instead of I am an outgoing person, it might become I can be outgoing, but I need to balance. My identity was always that I wanted to be there to save everybody and help everybody and fix everything. That can't be my identity anymore. Whether I have the energy to do it or not, that's not what's in question. The question is, how do I reframe who I want to be? I'm a kind, helpful person, but I am also a person who is seeking balance for my own life, for my relationships, and for my loved ones, right? And how do I keep the part of me that generates ideas without letting it derail everything? How do I become the person who sets good boundaries, but also understands that my brain works differently than everybody else's? My energy levels are different than everyone else's. And I can't allow just the standard expectations that I think should be there for me. I can't allow that to influence what my life is going to be. I just can't allow it anymore because it's had such a terrible impact.
That's where the work is. It's not about changing who you are, but learning how do you work with who you are, figuring out what do I keep, what do I let go of.
I agree. And it's not a clean process. It's not an easy process. It's not fast. It's not linear. It's truly real and it's truly an experience. And you're not alone and you don't have to be alone. It really should be part of the criteria of when they are doing ADHD testing, like your intro into ADHD. Because how do you expect to come and give someone such huge and finite news and then walk away? If you're standing in a space where you're questioning everything about who you are, you're not doing it wrong.
It might mean that you're seeing things you couldn't see before.
None of this has to be figured out all at once.
Lord knows I'm still working through it.
You start noticing what feels true and the things that don't, set to the side.
Be the one who decides who you are and who you're going to become.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might be on the first step of the same journey.
Until next time, remember you're not alone and you're not the only one who's angry on the inside.